Hello, Chef Marcus Giuliano here. Let's talk business. 50mistakes.com for lots of business tips and tricks. So what are most businesses selling? What is the actual thing that a business sells? Sure, businesses sell food, they sell cars, they sell trinkets, gadgets, whatchamacallits. They sell sand and gravel. They sell tangible products. But what is the common thread between every business? What should every business be focusing on and selling? I tell my staff, hey, we provide 5-star service. That's what you're providing. But what is the real thing that you're actually selling? So when I go to buy things, like I use this salesman for the longest time, Johnny. And I'm sad I don't use Johnny anymore because Johnny's an awesome guy. I used Johnny for 10 years, 12 years. He worked through 3 different companies. And when people said, oh, who do you buy your produce from? I said, I buy my produce from Johnny. And they're like, well, who's Johnny? Where does Johnny work? I'm like, doesn't matter where Johnny works. I buy my produce from Johnny. That's who I buy stuff from. He had a great selection of organic in both places he worked. The third place, it got a little convoluted. There was a little family politics behind the whole thing. I don't buy from them anymore. But for the longest time, I buy from Johnny. What did Johnny give me that the other guys weren't giving me? Johnny gave me a relationship. Johnny took care of me. Johnny knew what to do. He was that was a great salesperson, no means about it. But he took care of me. It was a relationship that I was after. I bought from Johnny. The most successful businesses out there, you buy from them for the relationship. You buy because you feel good about doing business with that person, with that business, with that company. Nordstroms does it the best. I keep referencing Nordstroms lately. I think their business model is fantastic. Their customer service, the relationships they build, their all-out policy on making the customer happy, doing what it takes. So I've been doing a lot of videos on Nordstroms lately. I'm using a lot for my own personal team training with my restaurant staff, as well as getting some content on 50mistakes.com. It's just an impeccable model, Nordstroms. But back to the relationships, man. You're willing to go to a restaurant that serves substandard food because your relationship with the server, with the waiter, with the owner might outshine all of that. Of course, food helps, service helps, all that helps. But the bottom line is the relationship is where it's at. The relationship is where the sale is made. Now, for me at my restaurant, I learned back in the late 90s that relationships are so important, but I learned my relationship lesson through the backside. I learned through the distributors and the farmers I was buying from, the relationships I built with those. My salespeople, all my salespeople, most of them, I totally respect them. I try to take care of them. I try to treat them with respect. There's a few salesmen I've had over the years, salespeople, sales professionals that really aren't that professional and don't deserve my attention or my respect, and I cut them off and move them aside, and I gravitate towards the salespeople that do take care of me. So I learned in the late 90s. I was taught for the previous decade in this business that the guests take care of the guests, take care of the guests, take care of the guests. But, relationship with the guests, take care of the guests. The guest is always right. I was taught that for 10 years, drilled in my head. And then most chefs then turn around and abuse the people they buy from. They abuse the salesman. They beat them up for price. They switch vendors left and right because they're saving 10 cents, 10%. And I started scratching my head. I'm like, man, that's no way to do business. So when I started working with local farmers, I had 2 very compelling stories. And this is when it clicked for me. I was like, man, this is what being a restaurateur is about. This is what being a chef is about. I had one farmer that called me and said, Marcus, first, before I roll into that, I got about 10, 15 chefs together in Colorado Springs with the help of other chefs, of course. It wasn't me knocking everybody's door. Once I started knocking on doors, other chefs were like, yeah, I know another chef friend who's going to want to buy. So we got together, 15 of us chefs. We sat at a table, farmers on one side, chefs on the other side, and I remember the one guy, Kettle Larson from the brewing company out there. He looked at the crowd there, at the farmers, and goes, hey, we got $5 million of purchasing power on this side of the table here. Or $1 million, whatever it was, some large number. He goes, we got a lot of money on this side of purchasing power. What can you guys do? What can you guys grow for us? What's out there? What's cool? What can we get for that? What can we get for that? And the farmers' eyes lit up, and they're like, wow, nobody's ever approached them like that before. So we started doing business with all these farms. Guys that were doing it as a hobby were now like, okay, now I'm selling to 5 restaurants, 10 restaurants, and I was just like piddling around. I had one guy, Pete, who we actually paid for his organic certification, first and only organic certification in Colorado Springs. The restaurant I was at, Walter's Bistro, we paid for his certification. We bought everything the guy could produce. So I had a call from one of the guys, and he goes, "Marcus, you saved my marriage." What are you talking about? He goes, "You saved my marriage. My wife wanted me to go back and get a job in the tech industry and do computers, stuff I'm good at but that I hate doing." He goes, "I want a farm." He goes, "Thank you so much for saving my marriage. You proved to me and proved to my wife that I can make money doing this." I was like, wow, that's so compelling, that's heart-touching. And then I had a guy call me. If any of you read Fast Food Nation, there was a gentleman who hung himself on a farm because his farm, he didn't feel his farm was viable. And the brother, I was working with the brother, the stepbrother. It was a family farm. So the stepbrother, working with him, buying all my potatoes. I contracted every single potato he could grow. And we were buying 2 bags of potatoes a week, 3 bags of potatoes. I said, "Tell me the price of the potatoes, and I want every potato you can grow all year long, storage crops. I want it all." And I was buying spinach and lamb and other things from him as well. But the potatoes, I took 100% of his potatoes. And he called me one day and he goes, "Marcus, I want to thank you." He goes, "For the longest time," and of course I knew that his brother had committed suicide. We spoke about that. He goes, "Marcus, you gave us hope in this farm." He goes, "I wanted my kids to go to college and get away from the farm. I wanted them to get away from the farm as fast as they could." He goes, "Now I want my kids to go to college, but I want them to know the farm is here and it's viable and it's making money and it's providing to the community and there's an option to be on the farm." And I was like, wow. That was just like mind-blowing to me. I get teary-eyed every time I think about it and tell this story. So for us, it's relationships. Relationships matter so much, not only to the guests sitting and eating, but to the people that we're buying from. The people that are providing the food, the people that are providing the services. The relationship is really where it's at. So, folks, you're in the relationship business. If you're selling something, you're in the relationship business. Plain and simple. That's what you're selling. That's the focus of what you're doing is relationships. So focus. I was originally making this video for my YouTube channel, but I think I'm going to use this video for my training. For my staff as well, and put this in our official training guide, training website. So yeah, relationships is the answer. Relationships is the key to doing business. When somebody walks into your business and they know the owner's name or they know the server's name and they can relate to, "Hey, that's so-and-so and he took care of us." When you remember their names, that's huge. That's the first step to building a relationship. Remember their names, but then connect with them. Some people, granted, don't want that relationship. They want to come in and eat at your restaurant. They want to come in and buy your product. You're never going to see them again. They don't want to see you again. It's one and out. But most people are really thriving to gravitate towards that relationship, to make them feel special, so they can trust you, so they can actually trust the product you're providing, the service you're providing. Let's face it. I call the same plumber because I have a relationship. I call the same electrician because we have a relationship. I don't call the cheapest guy out there. I don't have somebody else who says, "Oh, I can do that for you," and this and that. I call the guy who I trust. I call the guy who I have a relationship with. I call the people that have built a relationship to me, and that's the bottom line. So relationships, sell the relationship, and your business will prosper. I'm Chef Marcus Giuliano. Thanks for watching. If you like my videos, please hit like, subscribe, and leave some comments.